Hello and welcome to the AI Digest. My name is Joaquin Melara and I am the host. With me today is Joshua Ssengonzi. Joshua, it's a pleasure to have you. I think you're one of the first guests out of Africa. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Melara. I'm glad to be here and I'm excited to participate in this conversation.
Joshua, you are the Technology Program Officer at DefendDefenders. Can you tell us a little bit about what your job is and what does your organization do?
Well, I'm a technology program officer working with DefendDefenders. It's an international non-government organization that was established in 2005 in Kampala, Uganda, but having an outreach in 11 countries within the Eastern Horn of Africa. Uh, it's also called the Eastern Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Project, and its acronym is Defend Defenders. It exists to strengthen the work of human rights defenders in the sub-region by reducing their vulnerability to the risk of persecution and enhancing their capacity to effectively defend human rights in the region.
That
Yeah.
sounds
Uh, and my job, I work as a technology program officer, where I oversee the implementation of information technology projects that enhance the capabilities of human rights defenders in the digital age. Yeah, thank you.
it sounds like a benevolent job. It seems like you have a lot um, to work on to protect the people that are making a difference. You're doing a really good job for society. So kudos to you, Joshua.
Thank
Can you
you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Uganda and you know where it's geographically located and any notable areas of interest?
Well, Uganda is a landlocked country and it's found in East Africa. Uh, Uganda is roughly the size of Oregon State in the United States of America, and with a population of close to 50 million people. It's bordered to the east by Kenya, to the north by South Sudan, to the west by the Democratic Republic of Congo, and to the south by Tanzania. Uganda is known to be the source of one of the longest rivers in the world, that's the River Nile, and one of the biggest freshwater lakes in the world, that's Lake Victoria. It's found at the equator, so it has pleasant weather all year round. All you can say all year summer.
Sounds like a lovely, lovely place. I'm gonna have to stop one of these days to visit the river now and take a bath. Um, so what is happening in the tech scene in Uganda? What is up with the infrastructure? What kind of companies exist there?
Um, the last 10 years have seen tremendous growth in the digital infrastructure in Uganda. The government has invested a lot in upscaling the digital infrastructure across the country to enable more people get online and more people to use digital services. Yeah, and that has been spurred on by by investments in the telecommunications industry. So there are a number of telecom operators within the country that are providing affordable internet services and digital services to the population. And as thus, more people have been onboarded onto the online ecosystem, giving rise to digital companies focusing on financial services, health, and education. They are all visible within the economy. Yeah. So the kind of companies that are operating here within using the digital infrastructure technologies, banking, and insurance companies. Um, there is education companies, health companies, and to a wider scale, the public is using online services to go on with their daily lives. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's amazing that in the last 10 years the government has been making so many investments to support the developing economy, right? Because the world at large is a global economy now. Now that the infrastructure is in place, Uganda citizens can take part in that. Have you noticed also an influx of multinational organizations from different countries come into Uganda now that there's infrastructure or more advanced
Uh,
infrastructure? You said.
at the beginning of the last decade, when there was a noticeable spike in the interest in the by international companies investing in the digital infrastructure, companies from the global north were taking the lead. Companies like Ericsson, Nokia, Alcatel were the first entrants into these projects of deploying digital infrastructures. But later on, Chinese companies like Huawei and ZTE came on, and they actually outcompeted the earlier companies like Ericsson because they were offering probably cheaper services. And to say like mostly Chinese companies have led their efforts in digitalizing uh, the services sector by the government. They worked on a project like the electronic governance project that has enabled the government to provide to to digitize the processes of providing digital of providing public goods online, like
Yeah,
health,
for public
education,
services. Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
Okay. Um. So where is your attention going in all these developments in the evolution of infrastructure and the economy? What are you focused on?
Right now, our attention is on cybersecurity, privacy rights, access rights to safe information, digital literacy, and the expansion of the digital economy. The reason why we have our attention here is because the information age has presented opportunities for good and as well as for bad.
Hmm.
And the good consequences could include like improved standards of living that arise due to better access to information. For example, in health and in trade and and business. And the rough side is like bad actors could carry out surveillance, intrusion, and practice information control and unhindered power over the citizen.
Right. Okay. Your area of expertise, as you described it, is in big data, in artificial intelligence. As you mentioned earlier, you have a bent on human rights and digital rights. Um, can you clarify a little bit more on your uh, professional background? You know, sort of what you worked on before you became the technical program officer, and how that's helped you play your role now.
Well, in the beginning, I worked in the private sector where I worked with Huawei Technologies, um, and then with various uh, and then with various telecom companies.
Mm,
So I first worked as excuse me. I first worked. Sorry, I just have a cold.
you're fine.
I first I first worked as a value added services engineer in Huawei Technologies. It
Hmm.
helped me get hands on skills on what these technologies could look like. And I ended up also working as a database engineer. Um, then, like later on, I worked as a project manager, and I was handling hybrid roles of both uh, project management of deploying technology solutions as well as database administration. And later on, I moved into the nonprofit sector where I worked as a technology program officer, working on projects into of big data, artificial intelligence that empower human rights defenders in the region to carry out their mandates.
Okay, so it seems like you've worked your way up the ladder of different levels of responsibility and execution across physical infrastructure and software. Um, what led you to this human rights area?
I had a passion to contribute to the development of this sector because the region we work in is actually hostile to human rights defenders, and human rights are a bedrock of a prosperous society. Without a policy of human rights, without a society um, that upholds the virtues of human rights, there could be retarded growth. So we would not we have looked at societies where there's democracy and there is a noticeable improvement in living conditions. It could not be 100%, but most likely that's it. So I wanted to be among the people who could support in this area.
Okay. Can you explain to the viewers at home, people that are listening, what what are digital rights? We spoke about it briefly before we started recording, but I think you gave a fabulous explanation, and I think it lays the context of the conversation.
Well, digital rights are human rights pertaining to the digital age, allow unhindered freedom of expression in the digital age, freedom, and they also help um, to give capabilities to access self information eh, in a timely and unaltered manner.
Okay, and when you say human rights, what are you referring to? You said a safe society, a prosperous society, but what does it mean to have what does it mean to uphold human rights?
It means giving respect to certain values that all humanity is expected to enjoy, as described by the United Nations. Um, there are those values where all human beings are expected to have access to without any hindrance, like a right to like a right to a fair hearing, term a right to life, a right to water, a right to life. These are cardinal expectations that human beings should be afforded to, accorded. So those are the rights. And in societies where they are not hindered, you could find a lot of resourcefulness of people. You could find there is a lot of development of people. Of course, there are cases where autocratic societies have shown a lot of growth, but it's usually it comes at the expense of these rights. Like of late, there is a right to a safe environment. Uh, you've seen movements that are advocating for the reduction of climate change, things like that, due to the effects that could arise out of that.
Hmm. Where do you
Yeah.
think that mentality comes from? That ingrained resistance to uphold human rights.
Uh, everyone should be entitled to these rights without any form of discrimination, and this comes from the need to create a society that minimizes disorder uh, and unrest, and to ensure better living standards.
Mhm.
So these are the motivations of why we should uphold these rights for the people.
But why do some of those people oppose that? Why is there so much opposition?
Uh, there are many schools of thought in political governance. There is a school of autocratism that believes that they should control what the population should believe, what the population should think, how they should act, and they want to control and influence the people.
Right.
So that's why they fight uh, a free and open society where such human rights are always upheld.
Okay. Well, that seems to be a bigger problem past digital rights, and it's at the root of it's at the head of the government, or at the people in power. But let's move to talk a little bit about misinformation and online hate and bullying and things like that. So you kind of insulate human rights activists from these things, right? Or you support a healthy digital environment.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about these negative elements and how they impact society?
Well, misinformation uh, is in a layman's language misleading information, and um, it could be rumors, insults, and the effects of misinformation is that it could create terrible repercussions in society. Somebody could spread out a terrible narrative, for example, about election results, about the validity of a vaccine, and the repercussions are negative. All these examples I will not mention, but they are very evident.
Mm,
Uh, in some countries, even in the global north, I will not mention the countries, and online hate, uh, whose purpose, I mean, online hate, their engagement, whose purpose is to attack groups of people or individual people because of their race, religion, ethnic origin, sexual orientation, backgrounds, and etc. So online hate is a big problem that is rising with the rise of technologies like AI bots, big data, internet. You've seen cases of online hate speech on the media, and where the big technology companies are tasked with actually reining in and stopping the online hate. You've seen what online hate has done in countries like Ethiopia. So I would say that all these, we actually build capacities of human rights defenders or civil society organization to mitigate such challenges and to address them if they are encountered in an appropriate manner.
And you said earlier in the conversation that this is at a regional level, right? You sit and you sort of delegate and oversee around a large territory.
Yes, we work with a number of coalitions across Africa. So we share best practices and we have a wider reach through these coalitions and communities of practice. But principally, our areas of focus is 11 countries within the East and Horn of Africa. But even across Africa, we work through the coalitions, like in the South African Human Rights Coalition, even in West Africa, and the Northern African Human Rights Coalition.
Okay. And you said that the developments in infrastructure over the last 10 years have had a huge impact to society, to the economy, to the way that things are moving. What about artificial intelligence technologies? How has that impacted things further now?
Um, AI is artificial intelligence is a new phenomenon that has garnered more vibe and more energy within probably the last 2 to 3 years. The impact is not yet noticeable, though there are indications that it could influence a lot of events in the region. For example, the workforce or work opportunities could be that were originally performed by humans in the regions could be now could be now performed by like algorithms, which could lead to reduced livelihoods, and
Yeah.
also in the sense of the sense of human rights. So sophisticated actors could exploit the powers of AI to wreak more attacks on citizens and to wreak more attacks on citizens and uh, and the general population and human rights defenders. So we are actually on the lookout to also upskill in this area and build the capacities of civil society organization in this space.
Okay. So one of the components that you're saying is mitigating risk uh, and dangers around digital rights violations. Is one of those components I would imagine is education, correct?
Yeah, education and providing capacities to these organizations like softwares, like licensed softwares, antivirus softwares, um, like internet access where possible. There are some grassroots organizations who have no access to the internet. We actually have to chip in to provide fix up support, interventions, and capacity building in terms of skills training and education.
In the context of this in this program, right? I mean, you do strategy, you do partnership coalitions, you align yourselves in tactical ways of addressing the infrastructure gap, addressing the skill gap, addressing the knowledge gap. What is digital literacy, and how are you enabling that for these actors?
Well, the literacy could be looked at as the capability to access understand, communicate, and create information safely using digital technologies. In the wider community, it's known as ICT, Information Communication Technologies literacy, as in giving uh, um, masses the ability to utilize the digital technology to their own benefits, socially, economically, and politically.
Okay. And um, why is that important to disseminate these digital literacy programs in addition to the infrastructure?
Well, it enables individuals to utilize the digital tools um, um, uh, in ways that can give more credence to their lives, uh, provide better communication channels, and enable persons to access vast amounts of information online, facilitating learning and knowledge acquisition, which could be helpful in their social economic lives.
Mm.
Yeah.
And this is, being able to empower a society with the ability to be digitally literate and acquire knowledge and acquire skills from places that are filled with useful resources like Google, YouTube, online libraries. How does it support equality?
Yeah. In this digital age, it should now be evident that lack of information can be detrimental to certain person. It will give them unfair advantages while participating in uh, in the digital economies and in everyday life. So digital literacy helps in narrowing these digital inequalities, since the trainings enable persons and empowers them to participate in the digital economy, thereby improving their social capital, networks, and socioeconomic status. Since people will be able to access opportunities using the available information online for jobs, education, healthcare, and many other aspects that will empower their livelihoods.
Yeah. I mean, if they didn't have that, then they would be um, vulnerable, right? They would be vulnerable to economic conditions that don't have to do with anything digital. They would have to be relying on natural resources or other forms of labor that aren't really on the same paying scale, right?
Yeah, if there are efforts by the by the organizations that look at narrowing the inequalities, they should look at increasing the adoption of the use of ICT in the global south, because we've seen how digital technologies have helped increase per capita income in societies that um, have seen more investments in that sector. For example, certain sections of India, uh, and and some countries like Philippines, adoption of technologies has increased to better livelihoods. There has been a noticeable increase in the gross domestic products of those particular countries because of investments in digital technologies and ICT. So that can be said to our area. If there is more investment in this sector, more people will be uh, enabled to leave the poverty, the abject poverty circles, and they will improve their lives with this.
That equality also comes with reducing discrimination globally, right? I mean, if you're working and you have access to materials that other countries, other online workers, virtual actors, um, it should reduce discrimination in the global economy, right?
It may not as per se completely uh, eliminate discrimination, but it will lessen this vice. Okay, there will be better rates there will be reduced rates of discrimination if there is better access to ICT. Because I mean, if people can perform maybe certain uh, roles or jobs, they can take up certain opportunities online. Like you've seen online platforms like online work platforms like Fiverr. Uh, they have extended a lifeline to marginalized societies, and it has seen a noticeable improvement in their personal and national economies. And since people have enough funds, enough income to now also access better health services, education services, and other services that are helpful in uplifting their lives. So it may not be 100%, but it will definitely help.
What do you think would be a way to implement a more effective means of change? Like, what resources would you need access to enable that sort of change that would be more lasting and impactful?
Um, yeah, this is how can I call it? You need more than digital technologies to create a lasting change. There should be advocacy at
Mhm.
international, regional levels of governance, like at the UN and anything, to ensure that there are more legislations that are passed and more accords should be adhered to that lessen this discrimination. Countries should adhere to that. Other than digital technologies, there should be investments in in the health sector, investments in the education sector. Uh, there should there should be favorable trade agreements between countries. Okay, that favorable trade can also minimize uh, like inequalities. Okay, many inequalities are driven by social ills like lack of education, lack of trade routes,
Mhm.
lack of information, and anything like that. So if we can minimize that, uh, increasing access to digital technologies is actually a part of the process of achieving this. There are many other factors at play other than this.
I mean, also when you look at this from a macroeconomic standpoint, there is a point where the digital literacy saturates the capabilities of the general population, right? That technology needs some time to be embedded in the culture and capabilities of a people. It doesn't just happen. You can't just give somebody a phone and they'll suddenly be able to do everything with it. They need to be acclimating it. What are the features? What are the capabilities? Training programs, as you said. Um, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Actually, it's a process. It's a process, and we have to be patient and give it time so that you can see the benefits.
What about the university level? What about the higher level, higher educational institutions? Do they have state of the art facilities that allow you to specialize, in big data, visualization, AI technology, research in computer science?
Yes, universities have really embraced this new trend, and I think they are better prepared. And also, you have you have to give um, you have to give applause to online platforms like EDX, Coursera, those massive open online course platforms that
Mm.
have enabled certain populations in lower income countries to also be able to access this knowledge. It has translated into substantial benefits on ground. You find a lot of graduates of computer science, computer engineering, information technology, and also people are taking on advanced degree and research degrees in these areas, which has shown noticeable progress and results. For example, in the financial industry, like in my country, there is a adoption of digital currencies, digital payment methods, which are localized solutions. So solutions have been developed locally, and that could be attributed to capacities that were developed in providing this education that focuses on digital literacy and advanced digital communications.
Where do you that's an interesting perspective. I take for granted Coursera because I've seen it around for so long, but it's true. If I were in an area where there was no digital infrastructure and suddenly we had digital infrastructure and I suddenly have access to this new information for free, it would radically change my ability to gain new knowledge and skills that are relevant to the workforce at a global in a global or an international level, better said. Um, where are you guys going to be allocating your resources in the next 5 years? Do you think?
So, in the next 5 years, where we are going to focus on uh, offering capacity building programs um, in digital and physical security, uh, ge- uh, uh, tailoring knowledge and capacity programs to help communities live up to the trends of artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things, possibly lobby for more support to work on projects that will improve internet access in in the region, and sometimes offer small financial grants to solve specific problems that we identify while conducting those digital wellness checks that we actually usually uh, provide to grassroots civil society organizations.
Hmm, okay. Well, Joshua, do you have any thoughts on how the efficacy of these capacity building programs are going? And can you just give us a little bit more understanding of how they function at a tactical level? It's a foreign concept to me to hear how private and government partnerships function, and sort of what the planning and execution of those functions look like.
So, capacity building programs are tailored to the specific needs of a particular organization or like groups of people. The first thing you have to do is to carry out a needs assessment to gauge the skill level of the participants or even the community. Then after that, you have to tailor your training program, and you have to be carrying out evaluation, post and pre and post evaluations to gauge the amount of knowledge that has been acquired by the organizations, by the persons. Then you have to have platforms for continuous learning, like organization has an e-learning platform where participants, organizations are encouraged to participate in continuous learning programs. And later on, we have to measure the impact on the society, where we conduct follow-up visits to these grassroots organizations, and we actually engage the local community in which they are operating to find out how the people we trained or we provided who participated in our capacity building programs are benefiting the society. Uh, now, participants, organizations that are ultra skilled, they usually are onboarded into our training of trainers program. Now, these people act as centers of focus in particular regions as go-to in case we need to extend emergency support to civil society organizations, for example, that have been subjected, for example, to a cyber attack. They've been uh, they have their access to their online accounts has been compromised. These people can act as a goal, as 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 point of focus person who can provide the first immediate level of support. Then we come in. Then also we have partnerships with big organizations like Access Now, uh, Facebook, that where we intervene in supporting uh, persons or local grassroots organizations in the field of human rights and other sectors who have been subjected to like attacks. And lastly, we have a 24-hour helpline that where like affected personnel or people who need support and all who need specific support can call us for us to for us to like intervene.
That's an interesting. That's the thing that, if I understand correctly, so you recruit people that are suitable to play the role of trainer slash first respondents. They're dispersed to cover territories and manage proactively and reactively these cyber attacks or systemic digital problems in that territory. And they themselves also support to act as a satellite, right? They disseminate knowledge, education, training programs. Um, any gaps that you have remaining are sort of supported with partnerships that also benefit from these. How do we make a better digital environment initiatives, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. These we actually call them TOT trainers. These these come from the okay. When we are beginning the programs of shortlisting applicants, we usually get a wider pool, and as we continue to engage with them, we identify talented persons who qualify for our advanced training of trainer programs, and those are the kind of people that we send out to the various regions that act as the first line responders.
How long have you been working at this level, at a regional level, within your role?
Within my role, I've been in this role for 4 years, but the organization has been working uh, in this kind of work for the last over 15 years since 2005. So that's 19 years.
What advice would you give to somebody that's entering into a role like yourself, which is in this is nonprofit, right? This is a nonprofit sector.
Yes, yes, this is non-profit sector.
So what advice would you give to somebody entering into the nonprofit sector to make social change? You're probably working under resource constrained conditions, and you're doing your best to maximize impact with with low resource input. Um, how do you creatively work through these challenges to ensure that you still meet your agenda?
First of all, you have to be passionate about this kind of work. Then you have to put emphasis on being up to date in with your skills in these emerging technologies. Um, and finally, you have to have the ability to network with like-minded um, uh, professionals within the same field. So we have what they call communities of practice, where we share ideas and knowledge on how we can better perform our roles. Okay, so staying within these communities of practicing, being up to date with the knowledge and skills in emerging technologies like big data, AI, and Internet of Things, and also being passionate about this kind of work. Something I can give advice.
What about for establishing productive partnerships with these trainers and strategic alliances?
Well, within these communities of practice, you basically find these partners already of course, multinational companies have, I think, departments where they focus on upholding human rights and business rights. So they have programs where they seek out non-profit organization like us or other other international organizations where with whom they can collaborate on advancing their goals also and agendas. So you find opportunities of collaboration in this area within these consortiums, within these communities of practice, and there are many areas within the ecosystem that you can partner with and collaborate with. But you mainly find these international partners within these communities of practice as well.
How do you keep a pulse check on the grassroots movement? How do you ensure that you can quantify ROI, even though this is not a financial gain? This is a social impact.
Well, we have a robust monitoring and evaluation team that does a lot to to monitor and evaluate progress and results, impact, uh, and they usually publish quarterly and annual reports on how our work is impacting society and how we are achieving goals, where we are falling short, and we need to exert more efforts and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, Joshua, it, do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience, perhaps around how do we build an integral society that uses technology for good and yeah benefits mankind, benefits the world?
Okay, responsible artificial intelligence is a subject that is enticing many executives of bigger companies. So I would recommend that we should put more emphasis on uh, providing more programs or to increase the digital literacy rates among societies that are growing, uh, better internet access or increase the usage of internet by the communities, and then advocate at the national and international bodies for private sector companies to practice responsible tech. Okay, the emergence of artificial intelligence, big data is going to affect individual and countries in ways many people can't comprehend. But it's up to us to devise mechanisms that will actually benefit society. Or else we shall exacerbate or increase the likelihoods of bigger inequalities in the future. Until we start working on measures to address such ills, then we are most likely going to grapple with bigger challenges for the future.
Who should reach out to you if they want to get involved with this nonprofit funding, skill wise, etc.? Who do you think would be ideally suited to support your mission?
It could be private companies, multinational companies, even non-government organizations. Uh, they can always reach out to us, and we work together to achieve goals of similar interests.
And can you give just a little bit of an example with the Huawei? I know they came in, they built infrastructure, but they decidedly saw that as an investment because they were going to sell cell phones and internet plans, right? They-
Actually, in the beginning, Huawei was not selling phones. I think it just started manufacturing phones a couple of years ago. What they were doing was laying out telecom infrastructure where
Mm.
uh, communication technologies could be could be realized. Okay, so they could lay out masts, microwaves within rural areas, and things like that. Okay, they could support local telecommunications companies and anything. Huawei doesn't sell like internet plans; it's the local telecommunications companies. What it does is that it provides the technologies that the local telecommunications companies use to provide services. Huawei is like Ericsson or even Alcatel, he's a vendor. And the local telecommunications companies like MTN, Airtel, those are like customers to it. Yeah. So of late, I'm seeing Huawei laying out programs for digital trainings, things like that. It's something that it's doing, but I don't know which partnerships it's having, but I have not come to know much about that direction it's taking. But I see it within the local media where they actually issue out calls for citizens to partake into digital literacy uh, programs. Yeah.
Well, okay. Joshua Ssengonzi, I really appreciate the time that we spent, and I've learned a whole lot more about developing infrastructure and how that shapes society. And even though the infrastructure is there, it doesn't mean that the society is ready to fully utilize for positive gain, economic or otherwise. That's It's a very interesting con- conundrum problem that you're facing. I know you're tackling it systematically and methodically, so I wish you much luck. Um, Is there anything? Are there any last words that you'd like to give the audience before we conclude the interview?
Yeah, just as you mentioned, digital transformation is a process that takes time. The dividends could be realized after a certain time effort has been spent, and there should be a level of commitment and consistency and also perseverance to ensure that uh, the, the digital divide is narrowed or the benefits are realized. I thank you for hosting me on the AI Digest, and I'm glad to have shared my thoughts.
Oh, all right. I'm very happy that you came on, and I deeply appreciate you sharing your expertise with the audience. Um,